Welcome to Empower Women at Work. I'd like to welcome Jen Tongco, CEO of NetTrust Philippines. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. And our topic is leading the millennials. Jen, as a CEO of your own company, what was the top challenge you face leading your people, and how did you handle that?
Okay. I think if there's a short answer to that, of course, everybody would agree it's really about retaining them. But if you really analyze it, if I really analyze this, it's really all about having the same kind of mindset and letting them operate on the same kind of principles and
Mhm.
mindsets. So, how did I handle that? Well, first, I handled it with maybe I just would choose three, right? So, first is right, like having a different mix of generations within
Mhm.
the team. My mistake before was, I love my millennials. They're really hardworking and they have a lot of ideas, they have a lot of energy. But my mistake before was employing all millennials, right?
Mhm.
Um, so in hindsight, when the moment that I introduced different generations within the team, that's when I started to see a whole lot of difference. When I started to employ Gen Xers, baby boomers, and
Mhm.
that mix. Actually, it's still 70% millennials within NetTrust, but the introduction with the 30% Gen Xers and the baby boomers
Mhm.
actually created a lot of synergy within the team. Because, for example, um, the the millennials, they are still maturing, right? They have a
Mhm.
lot of energy, they're talented, they are maturing. But sometimes, maybe the work ethics, the solid work ethics, and that wisdom, the experience,
Mhm.
is still building up, right?
Mhm.
And but my baby boomers have already said that. They have been through a lot, and the resilience is
That's
built
right.
into them.
Mhm.
So it's sort of they sort of like nahahawa sort of
Mhm.
thing to,
Mhm.
to the millennials. And in the same way, the millennials have a lot of energy. They are risk takers. They don't want to stay within the same thing. Like they would
Mhm.
ask why, right?
Mhm.
So this inspires as well my other generations to really think, look at things differently. So that created that sort of very good mix within
Mhm.
my team. Second would be I changed my hiring process.
Mhm.
Before, I just interview and that's it,
Mhm.
right? So I changed it to a rigorous process wherein we do practical examinations,
Mhm.
assessment, practical assessment. So, for example, if you're a salesperson and you're applying for an account management position, we will give you materials in advance. For example, a very short reading,
Mhm.
and you will present a PowerPoint presentation. Okay,
Mhm.
so and then like maybe we'll give you a week to study that and present. We'll give you it's like a case study, right? We're the clients, right? So what happened was that we weeded out a lot of those that are not interested or those that don't want to put in the effort. So
Mhm.
it's like 80% weeded out. So the
Mhm.
remaining 20% who really persevered to study the product, to try to understand, you will see it. You will see it from the practical examination. So I think it's important that you have the right people, whether it's millennial
Mhm.
or not, because it's sometimes they are being stereotyped like
Mhm.
millennials are this and that. But I think you really have to just have the right people
Mhm.
within your organization, and so that's it. And then number three, of course, once you have hired them, it's important that you set the right culture
Mhm.
because millennials will be coming from different um, backgrounds, different family values,
Mhm.
right? They may be talented, but they come from a different set of principles. Um, Once you have hired the right people, it's important for the organization to
Mhm.
have the same mindset and
Mhm.
principles. So how did I do that? So I made sure the culture is very much emphasized.
Mhm.
And we did that by doing Monday huddles. It's very consistent. Monday huddles,
Mhm.
every Monday morning, we gather
Mhm.
and we eat breakfast together. So that's
Mhm.
sort of the camaraderie. It's something
Mhm.
that millennials like to do. At the same time, we have this presentation every single Monday morning
Mhm.
about a different topic. But typically, like for the last year, the topic was really on about our core values,
Mhm.
right? We have like CRISTO, like six core values. So that really sealed the deal. So once I have the right people, getting them to, you know, be in the same mindset
Mhm.
really helped. I mean, I don't have a perfect setup. I mean, I'm not saying that my millennials will not resign, but it's really, it has really helped. It
Mhm.
has really helped somehow.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those success formula that you've had, in dealing or leading the millennials. So what I
We're
gather,
still learning, yeah, but
yes, and it's a continuous learning.
continuous
But
learning. Right.
so far, what you have shared, and if I may just summarize, talent retention, you said, is a challenge, and to manage that or to overcome that challenge, in talent retention, you mentioned about balancing the or mixing the generations, leveraging the strengths of each
Correct.
generation. You also mentioned about your hiring process, which should change to be more practical, to be more real life, based. And then the culture embedding, I think that's critical. I agree with you. Culture is really, really a key driver in terms of leading people, be it millennials, Gen Xers, or in the future, the Gen Z. So your Monday huddles, that sounds very interesting. And
It's
of
very
course,
fun. It's very fun. It keeps me young because that's the
you are
time
young.
we joke around. Yeah, but then when I'm beside them, I feel like I'm not young anymore, right? Because they're really young, where they're in their
Mhm.
20s. And Monday huddles, everybody looks forward to our Monday huddles because it's a time where we we crack jokes and things like
Mhm.
that. But at the same time as well, Monday huddles is all about sharing the cybersecurity news because
Mhm.
it's important for us, everybody within the company, even
Mhm.
not related to sales or technical, to
Mhm.
understand what's happening in the industry. For example, if there's an iOS vulnerability or an Android vulnerability, they're first to know as well.
Mhm.
So we share all of it's embedded in our culture to be security focused as well as within the core values.
Mhm.
If I may add,
Mhm.
um, with millennials, you have to understand them, right?
Mhm.
Understand their language, what makes them tick. In one of my millennials actually sent me a note. I'm surprised because of all the things that he would be grateful for. He mentioned this. He said that, "Ma'am, thank you for giving us an avenue where our voices are heard." I mean,
Yeah,
that's different, right? I mean, I would expect a
excellent.
lot of different things in terms of gratitude, but that says a lot about
Mhm.
millennials, like what they value, how
Mhm.
they feel valued and
Mhm.
appreciated. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's
Thank you.
the
Yep.
thing.
For sharing that. It's being heard, it's being listened to, being
Yes,
understood, being appreciated at the end of the day. That's an excellent example of how to lead millennials. And Monday is a very good choice because that sets the week. That sets the
correct,
start of the week, the mood for the
correct.
week and your motivation to work for the week. So excellent. Thank you, Jen. And I have one more question.
Mm.
For aspiring leaders, especially women leaders, what practical advices do you have to be successful, to be prepared, to be effective in leading teams?
Mm. Yeah, being a leader is a thankless job, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say there are a lot of tips. Yeah, and there are a lot of things. Maybe I'll just choose a few.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that comes to mind is actually, understanding your leadership brand, your own leadership brand,
Mm-hmm.
because every leader is different. And the more you watch YouTube TED Talks or
Mm-hmm.
read LinkedIn articles,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be confused. Like a leader says it this way, another leader does it this way. And, it's easy to copy it. But
Mm-hmm.
after some time, you would lose it. I mean, if it's not you, you
Yeah.
would not be able to sustain it. You will not be consistent. So that's what I learned
Mm-hmm.
through the years, that sometimes you're hard on yourself. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
did I do it this way? Why this another? leader do it that way. But being true to your core principles as a leader
Mhm.
actually would really sustain you in the long run, because people will appreciate you for who you are as a leader. The right
Mhm.
people within your core team,
Mhm.
right? So I've had this session, like I had this feedback session with my
Mhm.
core management team, and I asked them about, what it is that how they see me as a leader. So it's consistent. They see
Mhm.
me the same thing as well. I see myself, and it's the same as well as them. So
Mhm.
words pop up like integrity
Mhm.
and coaching and mentoring and being
Mhm.
very hands-on. And that's who I am,
Mhm.
right? How I do it is different from what how others do it, because that's
Mhm.
personality. But
Mhm.
the core values, that's who I am as a leader. So whoever I lead, whenever it may be,
Mhm.
wherever. So it's being true to integrity and coach, because that's who I am. I coach.
Mhm.
It's fulfilling for me to be able to affect somebody's life, both professional and personal. I do that,
Mhm.
right? Whenever I do a lot of those coaching and mentoring. So it's good to understand that they also appreciate that a lot.
Mhm.
Right? So it's a different flavor, but it's something that they appreciate, because that's my leadership brand,
Mhm.
right? So it might be different for the end for the others, right? And then so that's one, being true to your um, leadership brand.
Mhm.
Number two would be knowing that you don't need to know all the answers.
Mhm.
For me, that's also one of my brand. I ask a lot of questions. I ask my team, what do you think? What's your suggestion? Um, at the end of the day, of course, you will have to decide, but it's assimilating all of this information and data before you make your decision. So I don't just stop with the professional setting. Um, you have to know what questions to ask. It's very important for a leader. Ask what you have to know what questions to ask and who to ask it from.
Mhm.
For example, I ask mentors like yourself. I even ask my parents, or sometimes I ask my friends. Just last Saturday,
Mhm.
I had this online session with my friends, and I asked a question, an HR related kind of question. And I'm humble enough to ask that question, and I got a lot of answers from different perspective, from different companies, from different countries, best practices from different countries. I have a wealth of information before me that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't ask that question. So be humble to ask
Mhm.
that question. Don't be too proud. Have a coach, have a mentor. Ask anybody, learn from everybody around you, and then you decide. I think that's going to be very good. And then lastly, but aside from, of course, inspiring them all the time, um, communication will be key
Mhm.
for me. I think if you don't, one practical tip is that if you don't like to communicate, don't start leading people, because
Mhm.
um, for me, communication is a core aspect of leadership. And when I say communication, it's not really this talk. It's
Mhm.
really, I think for me, it's 20% you talk and communicate your vision, and 80% listening.
That's
Um, and listening is not just listening to what is being said, but also listening to what's not being said. So that's listening. And the only way you can do that is if you spend time. Relationship, again, it's all about relationship. So I always encourage my management team, go out to lunch with them, have two bottles with them, have a coffee with them, because that's the only time that you will get to know them. Because
Mhm.
if you don't establish that relationship, it's all about orders, which
Mhm.
will not will not work. I mean, it's not sustainable, right?
Mhm.
What's sustainable is the relationship that you've had, him and him or her understanding where you are. Like, because if you're a leader, it's
Mhm.
easy to be misinterpreted,
Mhm.
right? Because you're gonna say something and things like that. But if the relationship is already set, um, even if you say it one thing, they wouldn't take it in a negative light. So
Mhm.
once the relationship is there, then you can listen as well to what he's saying, right? So, um, and then from the listening and the communicating, then you'll be able to
Yes,
influence your
that's
people.
right.
So I think, yeah,
Trust is established from
trust is
there, and of
established.
course communication becomes easier. So I like what you have said, about the three advices or tips that you have. So if I may summarize, being true to yourself, to your brand, your leadership brand, being establishing your own kind of leadership brand, asking questions, being curious, and of course communicating, truly listening to what is not just being said, but to even to what is not being said, because from there they become more open. When they trust you, they become more open, and they can take both the good and the constructive feedback that you give.
Correct.
Very empowering, very empowering kind of leadership, Jen. Thank you so much for those advices.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.